want Danny Parkins joining us live, former Chicago radio host, and that's where you grew up. You know, it's funny. We go back to the Bears. There's so many issues. I said I was rooting. Usually a Hail Mary, I feel bad for the losing team. I'm like, oh, they outplayed them. I was rooting for the Hail Mary to work. I was so disgusted by some of the Chicago stuff. You've got friends in Chicago, still spend some time there. I'm surprised Eberflus has sort of escaped this criticism. Does he deserve more after that loss?
Oh, I don't think he's escaped this criticism in Chicago. Certainly not from my friends or the media, but also, Colin, his players. It's a very empowered roster that he has. DJ Moore went on the score the next morning and said, I didn't like the play call of giving the ball to the backup center on the goal line. Kevin Byard, the safety, said, we should have played more up on the play before the Hail Mary that gave the Commanders an extra 13 yards. Jalen Johnson went on the score and said, we should have called a timeout before the Hail Mary. Cole Kmet, in his press conference with the media, said, we got to respect practice more and have more accountability during the week. So all of these things you can reasonably conclude as an indictment of its coach, and I certainly would on a few of them, but I talked to a player on the Bears last night who said they like that their coaching staff empowers their leadership council and takes feedback. So I don't think that they're going to break over this. I don't think that there's going to be a mutiny over this. But the thing with Matt Eberflus that drives me insane is don't you know what on my shoes and tell me it's raining.
Right.
Like he was like, I don't think we needed a timeout before the Hail Mary because everyone was in position. Tyreek Stevenson's back was to the ball. Like, everyone wasn't in position. Like, Dan Quinn said the key to the Hail Mary was the play before the Hail Mary because Jaden Daniels would not have been able to get it to the 3 or 4 yard line for the tip if not for those yards. Matt Eberflus said, oh, the play before didn't matter. It was all going to come down to the last play of the game anyway. So Matt Eberflus kind of chose the route of denial instead of accountability, and that's the thing, honestly, more than the failed execution that bothered me most.
Yeah, I want to talk about the Mike Tomlin situation. I've been pretty hard on him. I've always said, first of all, he'll be the best former coach ever on television. He's the funniest guy at the podium, the most succinct. He'll be great in media. He'd be unemployed for 2 minutes. They're not going to get rid of him. But I always felt he was kind of tone deaf offensively. And then I watched he moved off Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph, and Justin Fields was 4-2. And I watched Russ last night, and I'm like, it's kind of Seahawks light. They're not as good as Seattle. But defensive coach, defensive culture, big run game, playmakers. Like this Russ and this Steelers, I'm like, yeah, this team could win playoff games. Do you see the same thing?
Yeah, I got to admit, it's not fun for people in our position to admit that we're wrong, but we give so many opinions, we're going to be wrong inevitably, and I've got a lot of bookies who've known over the years how wrong I can be. I was wrong about this. I was wrong about Russ. I was wrong about Mike Tomlin this year. I thought Justin Fields gave them a better chance. Najee Harris now has 3 straight games over 100 yards, 2 with Russ, 1 with Fields. George Pickens, in the 2 games that Russ has started, is averaging over 20 yards per catch, and they've had over 400 yards of offense in back-to-back games. Yeah, it's the Jets and the Giants, but still, that's a level of downfield passing that Justin Fields simply wasn't giving Pittsburgh. And Mike Tomlin took a lot of heat, locally and nationally, and in the locker room. Justin Fields had a lot of defenders in Pittsburgh that thought that he deserved to remain QB1 of the Steelers. He's a very popular guy. Russ is a little weird, a little quirky. And so Fields had allies in Pittsburgh, and Tomlin made the unpopular move, went to Russ, and it's unlocked it. And I got to say, Mike Tomlin, and this is shocking, he's never won Coach of the Year. He's 10-1 right now to be the NFL Coach of the Year. The Steelers are 2-1 to win that division. They were picked to be under 500 for the first time in his tenure. Before the year, their win total was 7.5. If they win that division, I think Mike Tomlin, Coach of the Year, very good chance of happening. I love that wager this week.
So I said, if you're being honest with yourself and you're an NFL general manager and you're asking yourself, do I have a quarterback capable of winning a playoff game and potentially 2? We're not asking you to be a Super Bowl team. It's not realistic. But a team that could win a playoff game on the road, is your quarterback good enough? And there's 8 teams where I think the answer is no. There's 4 in the AFC, and there's 4 in the NFC. So we can put those up. Browns, Colts, Raiders, Titans, Giants, Panthers, Saints, Seahawks. I think Geno's probably the best of that group, but I don't see him in the NFC as a 2 playoff win because that means he'd have to beat Detroit or San Francisco, and the Niners have owned him, or the Rams or whoever. So what's interesting is that Aaron Rodgers isn't in that group, but in his last 25 starts, he's not only 10-15, he's the only quarterback without a 300-yard game, and his passer rating is 88. What do you do? He's the prettiest, but Danny, the numbers don't lie. He's not capable of winning 2 playoff games in the AFC, is he?
Colin, he's 40. Like, of course the Jets should draft a quarterback. He's 40 years old, and we have no idea if he's going to go into the darkness and never come back after this season. So, obviously, the Jets need to plan for life after Aaron Rodgers, and we don't know when that is going to happen. And listen, I'm new to this national TV game, right? I've made my bones in local radio. I get it. It's New York. It's media market number 1. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's a celebrity. He's a famous guy. Why are they still interesting? They being the New York Jets. What? They have 2 wins. They beat the Titans and the Patriots, and then the Patriots avenged that loss. This team is not good. They are not interesting. They are not competitive. They're a soap opera. They're dramatic. They fired a coach. They say weird things, but they are not an interesting football team in any way, shape, or form or definition of the word.
Okay, I want to wrap this up. Danny Parkins, Breakfast Ball, author of Pipeline to the Pros, by the way, great basketball book, and you can follow him on Twitter at Danny Parkins. So I'm watching the World Series last night, and it's really interesting. I was talking to a friend, and he goes, if you watch the American League playoffs, the Yankees look very formidable. And then you put them against the Dodgers, and you're like, if Aaron Judge isn't hitting, they look like an American League Central team against the Dodgers. And years ago, we championed the hot stove league when the Yankees would just go buy everybody. Word this week that the Dodgers will pursue Soto along with Betts, Ohtani, Freeman. Is that as I watch this, and I feel like I'm watching, the reality is the Yankees they're no longer the Yankees. If Aaron Judge isn't on fire, Ohtani can be hurt. It doesn't matter. Their ninth hitter's Tommy Edman. Is it the Yankees just don't have nearly as many good players as the Dodgers?
They don't, but Soto and Judge as a top 2 is a pretty damn good top 2, right? I mean, Aaron Judge is going to win American League MVP with 58 homers this year. So, like, if Juan Soto's the second best player on your team, it's a pretty dynamic team. He's just been nothing in the postseason, which is how he gets defined. We were talking about it on the show today. He's going to get cheered before his first at-bat, and if the first at-bat goes poorly, there's a really good chance that he gets booed the rest of the way. Guy's the MVP with 58 homers. If he does nothing in this World Series, he might be booed on opening day next year. So there's no question the Dodgers are the best organization, the best roster, top to bottom. But I do think the Yankees, at least with offensive firepower, not top to bottom, to your point, but if Stanton, Soto, and Judge were all performing, that was good enough to get them the 1 seed in the American League and, give him an MVP. So I think Judge not performing is just such a massive thing. But it's also been clear for a while, for the last 12 years, frankly. They only have the 1 World Series to show for it. But there's a gap between the Dodgers and the rest of the sport. There's no question about that.
All right, Danny Parkins, Breakfast Ball, Craig Carton, Mark Schlereth, every morning. Great seeing you, buddy. Appreciate you stopping by.
Thank you, Colin.
Hi, everybody. It's me, Uncle Colin. Subscribe here to get the latest from the herd, including exclusive behind-the-scenes videos and more, wherever you may be, however you may be watching. Thanks again for making us part of your day.